Hi, I'm Michael Mandanas, and I'm a junior in the Department of Biological Engineering at MIT. Last time, we started a discussion about some of the unusual or unexpected effects associated with COVID-19. Today, I wanted to continue that, as well as discuss some of the more dangerous effects.
Specifically, let's start with blood clotting. Clotting is an extremely important process. When you get injured, the cells surrounding the point of injury release signals into the blood that recruit tiny blood particles called platelets. These platelets then form a physical barrier called a clot that prevents blood from flowing out of the injured area, helping to speed up the healing process. However, if a clot formed inside the veins or arteries, it could cause swelling or cut off blood supply to the tissues that rely on those blood vessels. This is called thrombosis, and it's very dangerous.
Depending on where a clot forms, it can have a wide variety of effects. If a large enough clot forms in a short enough amount of time in an extremity, like an arm or leg, the tissues might start to die, possibly leading to the loss of that limb. If a clot were to form in the arteries leading to the lungs, this would result in a pulmonary embolism, where the cells in the lung begin to die and you stop being able to breathe. If a clot formed in the heart, you might end up having a heart attack.
Beyond that, a clot that formed in one part of the body, a thrombus, could break apart and travel to other locations, resulting in damage to multiple organs. Clots that do this are called emboli.
At the start of the outbreak, blood clotting was the last thing on anyone's mind. However, as time went on, autopsies discovered a high incidence of blood clots in victims of the coronavirus. In hospitalized patients, more and more people started developing gangrene and necrotic tissues as a direct result of clot formation. Eventually, it was discovered that patients of COVID-19 might develop an unusually high incidence of blood clots with potentially deadly effects. When this was discovered, scientists began trying to use blood thinners in patients with severe COVID-19 to reduce clotting. On top of that, some studies even began giving moderate cases blood thinners proactively in order to prevent blood clotting from occurring in the first place. We're not 100% sure that these drugs will help every patient. However, it is critical that the issue of clotting is addressed.
There are a few theories as to why this happens. One theory posits that since the cells that line blood vessels can express ACE2, when COVID enters these cells and kills them, clots form at the point of injury, as they would in any normal wound. However, because this occurs in the blood vessels, these clots block the flow of blood, causing the observed symptoms.
Another possibility involves the cytokine release syndrome I've discussed previously. In many severely infected patients, their immune systems may become hyperactive and release large amounts of cytokines, which cause inflammation and swelling throughout the body. This inflammation may be interpreted as cellular damage, leading to the secretion of pro-clotting factors like factor IX and a whole slew of other proteins. However, recently, another theory has begun to gain traction. Studies of patients with severe COVID-19 have discovered that some patients may develop antibodies that bind to and recognize their own cells.
These antibodies are called autoantibodies, and the ones found in COVID patients bind to the phospholipids on the surface of cells. These autoantibodies can bind to the inside of veins and arteries, and that interaction could activate nearby platelets and neutrophils, which are white blood cells involved in immunity. Neutrophils promote the clotting process through the release of the neutrophil extracellular trap, or NET. Basically, the neutrophil expels the DNA in its nucleus into the bloodstream, literally forming a net that can catch platelets and hold them in place.
Antibodies that bind to phospholipids have been found previously in autoimmune conditions like lupus, where they can cause thrombosis in any part of the body. This condition is called antiphospholipid antibody syndrome, and it can be potentially deadly. It's unknown how long that these antibodies will remain in circulation. However, one study found that they developed in about half of severe COVID patients analyzed. Now, the best working theory as to why these antibodies develop combines a multitude of different factors, including a genetic predisposition to autoimmunity, historical exposure to specific antigens, and an overactive immune response. Additionally, there have been viruses in the past that have been known to induce autoimmunity after exposure, so it's feasible that COVID-19 could do something similar. While it's unknown how long these antibodies will persist in the body, there are some other effects of COVID that might just be permanent.
I'm talking about long-term lung damage.
As the lungs are the primary target for the SARS-CoV-2 virus, it makes sense that they would receive the brunt of the damage associated with the disease. As more and more people recover from infection, we're beginning to see that those who recover don't always make it out unscathed. Many patients experience decreased lung function capacity post-recovery and continue to complain of respiratory symptoms like coughing and shortness of breath. There are many different mechanisms through which the disease can impact the lungs. The first mechanism is diffuse alveolar damage, which is usually found in patients who have developed acute respiratory distress syndrome, or ARDS. ARDS occurs when damage to pulmonary cells, or pneumocytes, in the alveoli leads to the buildup of fluid in the lungs. When cells die, they release fluid and debris locally, and inflammation can also cause fluid leakage from nearby blood vessels as well.
In the context of COVID-19, the virus can infect and destroy cells in little sacs in the lung called alveoli, which act as the interface between the air and our blood, where the exchange between oxygen and carbon dioxide can occur. When cells in the alveoli are damaged, the interface between the air and the blood is disrupted, and the transfer of oxygen can no longer occur.
Additionally, when tissues are damaged and cells are destroyed, they need to be repaired. And during repair, that damaged tissue can sometimes be replaced by excessive amounts of connective tissue, which can form a scar. When scarring occurs in the lungs, this results in a condition called pulmonary fibrosis, which renders large portions of the alveoli incapable of oxygen exchange.
Beyond that, we talked a lot about clotting due to COVID, so it's no surprise that clots can form in the capillaries associated with alveoli as well. When clots form there, blood can't get into or leave the alveoli, eliminating the exchange of gases.
These are just two of the ways in which the virus can cause lung problems, and there are many more. The real danger with this type of damage is that we're not really sure if it's reversible or not. There have been cases where extremely fit athletes have gotten COVID, and even after recovering, their lung function capacity has decreased significantly. It's still too early on in the outbreak to know how long these effects will last, but there's a chance that the decrease in lung function could be permanent. Now, last but not least, normally you would think that the most likely victims of severe COVID would be the elderly. And that's true. However, there are actually some younger patients who can be just as severely affected.
This is multisystem inflammatory syndrome in children, or MISC.
Early in the outbreak, it was observed that most infected children only got mildly sick or showed no symptoms at all. However, there was also a small cohort of younger patients who developed severe conditions, resembling Kawasaki disease or toxic shock syndrome. Interestingly enough, these manifestations sometimes didn't even show up until after the virus had cleared.
Kawasaki disease is a rare condition that affects the cardiovascular systems of some children. It's believed that some children develop this disease after exposure to some infection, leading to a hyperactive immune response. The child's overactive immune cells can then damage cells that line the blood vessels, leading to those walls getting thinner. If those walls get too thin, the blood vessel expands, and blood pressure and flow decrease significantly, leading to something called an aneurysm. The worst possible result of Kawasaki disease is a coronary artery aneurysm, which can interrupt blood flow to the heart, leading to a heart attack and death. Toxic shock syndrome occurs when the body becomes unable to deliver enough blood to the essential tissues like the lungs and heart. This usually occurs because exposure to bacterial toxins can cause the body to release vast amounts of cytokines, which can damage organs and blood vessels similarly to Kawasaki disease, lowering blood pressure and disrupting blood flow to essential tissues.
MISC can cause symptoms related to both of these conditions, and in the worst case, some children have even gone through multiple organ system failure, leading to death. While the link between COVID-19 and MISC isn't concrete, an overactive immune response to the virus could definitely induce the hyperinflammatory state required for these symptoms, i.e. through cytokine release syndrome. Whatever the case, it's clear that children can die from MISC, but as long as you know that it's happening, you can treat it. Steroids can be used to calm down the overactive immune response, and high doses of intravenous gamma globulin can be used to reduce damage to blood vessels. Now, These videos haven't covered all of the unusual effects associated with COVID-19, but I hope they've given you a taste of all of the strange things we still don't understand about this virus. With that said, thanks for watching, I hope you enjoyed, and until next time, I'm Michael Mandanas.